daughter of former Prime Minister Bob Hawke is understood to be preparing to take legal action against his wife Blanche Del Puget, challenging his will. Rosslyn Dillon has engaged a family law firm to argue $750,000 payments to each of Mr Hawke's children are inadequate. The will left his estate to Ms Del Puget, including the proceeds of the sale of their $15 million Northbridge home. Unless a settlement's reached, the dispute will be heard in the New South Wales Supreme Court.
Bob Hawke has a dear place in our heart because he was the acting Prime Minister when we first migrated to Australia. So this case, which I've only learned about more recently, is centred around Bob Hawke's daughter, Rosslyn Dillon, who was left $750,000 out of Bob Hawke's estate. And Rosslyn then argued that this amount was not enough for her expenses, even though each of the children received $750,000 and it was an equal distribution. What was very interesting with this case, and it actually garnered more controversy, was the fact that Rosslyn then claimed that she was sexually assaulted by a prominent politician in the 1980s and said that the father had then covered that up for his political career.
As an impartial observer and I suppose a legal expert, what stood out to you about this high-profile case? Were there certain, instances that stood out more than others?
The key point was, when you look at it from very impartially, you would think $750,000 sounds like a decent amount of money. It was distributed equally to all of the children, so it's quite fair, right? But then I guess the family dynamics and everything else is different for every family. And in this case, Rosslyn still felt that it was inadequate compensation, especially because of the sexual allegations of what she's been through. And that added another complexity and layer to this case, right? And the final point is actually, Rosslyn was able to obtain quite a large settlement amount. And it just shows you that legal disputes can happen, and in certain cases, certain beneficiaries may have a greater claim than others or have certain arguments why they should receive more. And the importance of advocacy and going to a lawyer is very important.
For the average person who was following this case, because I'm sure many people were, what lessons and key takeaways can you take from it that maybe wasn't from a legal perspective, but just a general perspective? So
the first one is, fair treatment doesn't always mean equal treatment, right? So Bob Hawke, when he wrote his will, was thinking, I'm being fair because I'm treating my children equally, but that wasn't the case because unique family dynamics need to be considered. In Bob Hawke's case, this was his second wife and child of another marriage, and traumatic events like sexual assault can have long-lasting impacts on victims and families, right? And the third thing is, again, open communication with family members. I'm not sure whether they had these conversations, whether it was quite open, but if they had more open communications, then they could have maybe prepared a little bit better for this event and this potential challenge.
As a lawyer, what ethical considerations come into play when you're navigating cases involving trauma and family disputes?
Look, it's a very important question because obviously we lawyers, we have to be very sensitive to all of these different dynamics and family situations and events that affect individuals. And, we're obviously very zealously protecting our client, but we have the ultimate duty is actually to the court. And so we have to always make sure we uphold honesty, integrity, and our ethics when we practice them. And so in sensitive cases involving trauma, we have to balance empathy for the client and also objectively the facts of the matter and also the merits of the matter in the case. And so it's very important to handle allegations responsibly and avoid causing further harm.
Rosslyn ultimately received a significant increase from her original inheritance of $750,000. In your view, what does an equitable estate distribution look like when children's needs and relationships differ?
That's a great question. And look, unfortunately, there's no one size fits all. Every family situation is different and unique. And the fair distribution of the estate needs to factor into a number of factors, such as financial independence. What's happening with those children? Do they have jobs? Are they working? Are they supporting themselves? Special needs. Do any of the children, any of the dependents require additional and special needs compared to other dependents? Yeah? So that's important. What contributions have the dependents made? Has one dependent stayed at home, looked after, cared for his parents, contributed to all the living expenses of the home? So all of these things will have an ultimate bearing in the case. The goal should be to address each child equitably, which is not necessarily the same as equally. And in this case, open communication and mediation can help resolve issues. And ultimately, this is what happened in this case, and they settled out of court.
For those creating wills, what steps would you recommend to minimize potential conflict among beneficiaries down the road?
It's always planning. So clear estate planning is crucial. Speak to your financial planner, speak to your lawyer, speak to your loved ones. Be as transparent as possible and have those open communications about your distribution, about the intentions. Then everyone buys into it. And if everyone's bought into it as part of this journey, then at the end of this journey, then they shouldn't necessarily feel grieved that they've been left out, and therefore hopefully promotes more harmony and less disputes. And that's the aim, right? So when someone passes away, the last thing they want is the family to be fighting about the estate.